Washington weighs in. The US president speaks directly with Xi Jinping about Taiwan. The pressure piles on Facebook. A whistleblower testifies in Washington, slamming the platform for sowing division and undermining democracy. Hong Kong film Drifting snaps up a whopping 12 nominations for this year's Golden Horse Awards. And riding a wave of success, how this wetsuit manufacturer on Taiwan's idyllic East Coast became #1 in the world. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Yin Khvat. US President Joe Biden has spoken directly with Chinese President Xi Jinping on the issue of Taiwan. He has also sent his national security advisor to Zurich for talks with Beijing's top diplomat. Cross-strait tensions have spiked in recent days, with China sending a record number of aircraft into Taiwan's air defense zone. Defense Minister Chiu Kuo-zeng is describing the situation as the most serious in 40 years. Rick Lout reports.
As Taiwan's military reels from unprecedented incursions by Chinese planes, 149 in 4 days, cross-strait tensions continue to be a sticking point for US-China relations. US National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan is due to meet top Chinese diplomat Yang Jiechi in Switzerland on Wednesday. Taiwan is sure to be on the table in their first meeting since a diplomatic spat in Alaska earlier this year. And President Biden made a rare call directly to counterpart Xi Jinping.
Well, I've spoken with Xi about Taiwan. We agree, we'll abide by the Taiwan agreement. That's what we are. And we made it clear that I don't think he should be doing anything other than abiding by the agreement.
It is unclear what exactly Biden means when he says the Taiwan agreement. But what is clear is the US is Taiwan's greatest ally and is crucial to acquiring the weapons needed to counter the China threat. But the US has never committed to coming to Taiwan's aid in the event of a Chinese invasion and has urged Taiwan to take its own defense seriously. And the country is beefing up its military spending, hoping to pour an extra $8.6 billion into its military budget to buy anti-ship hardware, including missiles and warships.
就我军人来讲的话，我觉得急迫就在眼前的。当然，目前眼前状对我们军方来讲的话，我只跟委员报告，是我从军以来40多年以来看到真的是最严峻的时候。
While the US is calling out China on its bullying, Taiwan's leadership clearly understands that responding to the greatest threat in a generation rests solely on its shoulders. Alex Chen and Rick Lowert for TaiwanPlus.
As you just heard, President Biden says he's spoken to Xi Jinping and that they both agreed to abide by the Taiwan Agreement. But what exactly is meant by the Taiwan Agreement? I asked Roger Lee Huang, a researcher at Macquarie University specializing in the politics and security of East and Southeast Asia.
So from my reading of this, this really is the same policy that the U.S. has really held since the late 1970s. This is effectively, again, the one China policy where the U.S. officially recognizes Beijing as the official government of China, but it really keeps the status of Taiwan quite vague, right? It acknowledges China's position vis-a-vis Taiwan, but it doesn't actually say it agrees with China's position on Taiwan. And this idea of Taiwan agreement, I do not believe it is in any official policy or document. This is more likely just a candid response from President Biden.
Do you think that this changes the tense situation that we've been facing?
This indicates an attempt by China and the United States to de-escalate kind of the surge in tension in the last several weeks and months, right? And the U.S. has responded quite forcefully, implying basically China is really playing with fire. So I think this is an attempt by the top state officials from both sides to try to de-escalate and try to return to kind of the status quo as it may be, right? This is the main thing that the United States has always promoted, which is the status quo, that there shouldn't be any unilateral changes across the Taiwan Strait. And in a way, really, I think for both sides to perhaps lower the rhetoric in the coming days and weeks.
And how about the meeting between Jake Sullivan and his counterpart in China, Yang Jiechi, this week? Will they be talking about Taiwan?
So there is this change, right, where the United States and other kind of its traditional liberal democratic allies is openly saying that Taiwan is part of this important liberal security network. And that obviously has provoked China taking stronger actions. And this opportunity for Sullivan to meet China's top diplomat effectively would be an opportunity, I think, for them to have a realistic conversation of what each side is willing to put up with and what may be a more agreeable, sustainable outcome, short of leading to more hot, potentially downward spiral of events in the region.
Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg has hit back at a whistleblower's claims that the social media giant is endangering user safety. A former employee gave a rare insight into the inner workings of the world's largest social network, calling on Congress to pass tougher regulations. Jaime Ocon has this report.
Harming children, stoking division, and weakening democracy. That's just some of the allegations made against Facebook at a Senate hearing. Former Facebook data scientist Frances Haugen is accusing the company of being aware of its negative impact on some teenagers' mental health from Instagram, as well as being dishonest in its public fight against hate and misinformation.
Facebook's own research says they cannot adequately identify dangerous content, and as a result, those dangerous algorithms that they admit are picking up the extreme sentiments, the division. They can't protect us from the harms that they know exist in their own system.
Haugen also highlighted CEO Mark Zuckerberg's 58% stake in voting shares that gave him what she called unique control over the social media giant.
And in the end, if he is the CEO and the chairman of Facebook, he is responsible for those decisions.
The buck stops with him.
The buck stops with him.
Coming just a day after a widespread outage knocked out its 4 major apps for several hours, many members of Congress from both parties are calling for stricter regulation on its services. But Haugen says regulation alone would not address the core issues, saying that the mechanism of engagement-based ratings made it unable to filter dangerous content.
The dangers of engagement-based ranking are that Facebook knows that content that elicits an extreme reaction from you is more likely to get a click, a comment, or reshare. And it's interesting because those clicks and comments and reshares aren't even necessarily for your benefit. It's because they know that other people will produce more content if they get the likes and comments and reshares.
Zuckerberg responded on his Facebook page with a lengthy rebuttal defending the company's policies. He said allegations that the platform deliberately pushes content which makes people angry for profit is deeply illogical. Senators are demanding that Zuckerberg appear before Congress, with one even calling the company morally bankrupt. Klein Wong and Jaime Ocon for TaiwanPlus.
British officials have met with the Taliban for the first time since it took control of Afghanistan. Prime Minister Boris Johnson's special envoy spoke with the Taliban government's deputy prime ministers in Kabul. They discussed the humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan and the safe return of UK citizens. It was the first open contact between the Taliban and UK officials since the fall of the US-backed government in August. As many as 330,000 children were victims of sexual abuse within the Catholic Church in France over the past 70 years. That's according to a report released on Tuesday covering cases going back to the 1950s. It was produced by an independent inquiry commissioned by the Church following a 2.5-year investigation. The report found there was a systemic cover-up of the abuses. The head of the inquiry accused the Church of showing, quote, cruel indifference to its victims. One survivor, French actor Laurent Martinez, welcomed the report, but said it comes definitely too late. The son of the former dictator of the Philippines, Ferdinand Marcos, has announced he will run for president next year. Former Senator Ferdinand Marcos Jr., known as Bongbong, said he would bring back unifying leadership as the Philippines deals with the COVID pandemic. Marcos joins a race with boxing star Manny Pacquiao. The mayor of Manila, President Rodrigo Duterte's daughter Sara is also expected to stand. Coming up, testing times, why the government is taking a closer look at donated blood. We'll see the details after the break.
Taiwan 最有人情味的地方。
Welcome back to TaiwanPlus News. Japan's new Prime Minister Fumio Kishida has spoken with US President Joe Biden and Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison. Kishida said he talked about issues of regional security, including challenges posed by China and North Korea. He was confirmed as Japan's new leader on Monday and promptly overhauled his cabinet. TaiwanPlus reporter James Chater spoke with Julio Puglisi, a professor of Japanese politics at Oxford University and the European University Institute. He began by asking why the new Prime Minister called snap elections so soon.
He decided to dissolve the Diet to ride the tiger of popularity because newly minted Japanese prime ministers usually bask on the sun of the popularity that is accorded to new faces and change. And that is the reason why he has called for snap elections by the end of the month to essentially take the opposition on their wrong footing. And so this means that they have to hasten preparations and steal their thunder so that he can make good use of his new cabinet, the new faces, and his own persona.
The defense minister and the foreign minister in Kishida's cabinet are the same as in the previous administration. But as you mentioned, we have this new economic security minister. Do you think this represents continuity or a shift in approach to regional policy, and particularly in relation to Taiwan?
This is closely knit with with Japan's engagement with Taiwan. This is probably the world's first ever cabinet position on economic security, and speaks wonders of the need for Japan to secure its supply chains, something that it has been reiterated also, especially at the US-Japan level through bilateral summits and 2+2 meetings. It is about securing steady supply chains, and Taiwan is part of this, as you know, in terms of, for instance, semiconductors, and Japan trying to lure high-end Taiwanese semiconductor technology factories in Japan, but also in terms of making sure that high-end technology does not spill over into competitors and potentially rivals. And Japan has in mind, of course, China.
And how are women represented in Kishida's new cabinet? And what does the new cabinet mean for progressive issues going forward in Japan?
So the cabinet has 20 members and only 3 women. Fewer than 10% of managers of most Japanese companies that are made up of women. And it's just under 10%, again, the composition of the parliament that is made up of women. And so this is to reiterate the fact that it is a very uphill battle that Japan needs to fight. And
the government's COVID task force plans to carry out antibody tests on donated blood to assess the prevalence of the virus in the country. Sandy Chi has the details.
The Central Epidemic Command Center has introduced enhanced COVID-19 monitoring measures. These include a large-scale antibody study. 5,000 blood samples will be randomly selected from blood donation centers. The test will cover 1 to 2% of donors, and participation is optional.
让捐血人保有这种退场的一个机制，所以就是说，在这段时间，就4月25号到7月3号，在全台各捐血中心有捐血过的人，如果觉得说不想在这个计划里面，在10月18日前致电1922，那留下相关的资料。
Personal data will be removed from the blood samples used for testing. The study will also allow health authorities to assess the risks of blood donation during the pandemic and whether it should be suspended to prevent further outbreaks. Damon Lin and Sandy Chi for TaiwanPlus.
The UN Weather Agency is heralding the award of the Nobel Physics Prize to climate scientists. The winner's work includes modelling Earth's climate and reliably predicting global warming patterns. The head of the World Meteorological Organization said the award shows more people are accepting that humans are responsible for climate change. Among the winners is 90-year-old Japanese-born American scientist Tsukio Manabe. He said his research focuses on understanding why the climate is changing. The nominations have been announced for this year's Golden Horse Awards, seen as the Chinese language Oscars. As Ken Ning reports, a film on poverty in Hong Kong has dominated the awards.
It's seen as the Oscars of the Chinese-speaking world. But for the second year in a row, entries from the PRC are conspicuously absent due to politics. Drifting, a movie about the lives of homeless people in Hong Kong, is this year's highlight with 12 nominations in total, including for its director, Zhong Li. Drifting is the only Hong Kong movie nominated for Best Film. 3 Taiwanese films in the category The Fall, The Soul, and Till We Meet Again each landed 11 nominations. Taiwanese stars dominate the Best Actor category, with only Francis Ng carrying the flag for Hong Kong. Best Actor nomination caps a prolific year for 30-year-old Taiwanese singer and actor Ko Kai. Ko has appeared in 3 films featured in this year's awards.
柯震东其实今年有3部的作品报名，认为《金钱男孩》他在当中做了相当大的一个突破，那没想到这么快又重演了这个母女竞争的这个局面这样。
Best Supporting Actor sees a posthumous nomination for Taiwan's Long Shaohua, who died in mid-September after appearing in the movie Gatao: The Last Stray. 2 stars of the Hong Kong movie Drifting also got nominations in this category. And 50-year-old Laleda Lee from Hong Kong was the only non-Taiwanese star in the Best Supporting Actress category, again for Drifting.
作为创作当中的题材，我觉得是再正常不过的事。但是就像刚才我说的，他不会因为这样子就被提名了。他必须要能够用他的技术、用他的艺术、用他的观点、用他的想法去打动。
The jury has decided not to award a gong for Best Animated Feature this year, with only 2 entries in the category. Kama Xu and Ken Ning for TaiwanPlus.
Located on Taiwan's northeastern coast, Yilan County is a popular tourist spot known for natural beauty, but it's also home to a homegrown business marvel, the world's largest maker of wetsuits.
你在台北其实你是小鱼，但是在宜兰我们是大鱼，又是从这里起源，那这样发展起来，变成对宜兰变成有很深的感情。
那阵仔是小生意咧，卖迄个插架啦、草鞋啦、木架吼。30多年前，我后生吼去德国慕尼黑全世界体育用品的展览会，在潜水衣、潜水鞋，真的都跟我参详讲，我们来做这个生意。
如果我们没有设法自己开发出原料的话，我们是没有未来性的。你是被人家捏着脖子的，你变成不可能成长。因为那时候机器也是自己摸索去开发的，可以说是因为你不懂，所以机器其实设计什么都是错误的。调整鞋模的时候，我手也会伸到下面去，结果常常把机器开动，夹到的时候惨叫一声，他赶快打开机器。拿出来的时候，自己看到我的骨头，白色的那根骨头，前面这一段大概有1公分的肉，全部都是压扁的，都是压碎的。我的手缝在我的肚子上，缝了半年，半年之后，他才把肚子的肉割给手。
最辛苦就是会在一种，大概也算是1亿多，到尾员工哇，自动的减薪，从减薪要打8折，95%以上的人签名，我感动咧，流泪实在讲。我说员工唔知向心力遐尼强，我大家暗时做到12点，我要火灾刷一清嘛唔知讲正进度有生产。
后来的竞争都是靠独特的技术跟靠专利来保护。我们的研发是没有预算上的限制，只要需要， 不管这个机器设备多贵，不管要花多少钱，我们都支持。像欧洲今年太多的变数，英国到底能不能成？那意大利跟欧盟又有很多的问题，但是我们没有流失这么一个客户。
冲浪池的造价大约200万美金，其实最主要原因是为我们的客户。有这样的冲浪池可以让他们真正测试这产品的功能。2020年东京奥运，冲浪会是一个正式比赛的项目，这是第一次冲浪在奥运这个场合中有全世界这样的能见度。
今年我们其实整个公司只有定3%，只要努力就会有结果了。
Thanks for watching Taiwan Plus. We'll leave you with some previews of the National Day laser light show rehearsal at the presidential office. Stay safe and see you next time.